Are you ready?
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the European Social Algebra Seminar. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce a talk by Eddie Fornaro from Marinda State University. And the talk is about evolutions of the second kind of finger-reasonless algebras. Please, Eddie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't speak English, but I will try to do this, okay? So, since 2009, since 2009, I've been studying evolutions of the first kind of finite incidence algebras with professors Ednei Santullo and Rosalie Brus Amarello, and more recently with Roger Pessoa, who completed his PhD under my supervision. And today, I'm going to talk about evolutions of the second kind of finite incidence algebras. I'll start by talking a little about partially ordered sets. So let X be a partially ordered set, or a pole set for short. We say that the elements X and Y in X are compatible if X is less than or equal to Y, or Y is less than or equal to X. And we just write X less than Y if X is less than or equal to Y and X is different from Y. And if an element X0 in X is compatible with every element of X, we call it an all-comparable element. And given elements X and Y in a pole set X, the interval from X to Y is the set of the elements Z in X between X and Y, and we denote it by this. And a pole set X is called locally finite if every interval of X is finite. An example, the set of the natural numbers with the usual partial order is locally finite, but this set here is not locally finite. Here, infinity is greater than every natural number, so this set is an interval. The interval from 0 to infinity. So this set is not locally finite. And the set of the real numbers with the usual partial order is not locally finite too. And the pole set X is said to be connected if for any elements X and Y in X, there are a positive integer n and a sequence of the elements of X that starts in X and ends in Y, so that xi is less than or equal to xi plus 1, or xi plus 1 is less than or equal to xi for all I. An example, any pole set X with an all-comparable element is clearly connected. This pole set X here is not connected. Okay? It has two connected components. It is one connected component, and this is the other connected component. And given pole sets X and Y, a map from X to Y is an isomorphism if mu satisfies the following property. X is less than or equal to Y if and only if mu of X is less than or equal to mu of Y. Or respectively, mu is an anti-isomorphism if X is less than or equal to Y if and only if mu of Y is less than or equal to mu of X. And when X is equal to Y, we call mu an automorphism of X, or respectively an anti-automorphism of X. And an anti-automorphism mu of X of order 2 is called an involution on X. We denote by this the group of automorphisms of X, and by this the set of the involutions on X. Okay. And now I consider an associative unit of K algebra K, and we denote by this the center of A. And remember that an algebra A is called a central algebra if the center of A is equal to K. Okay. An involution on an algebra. An algebra for me is also is every associative and unital, okay? And an involution is an additive map, row from A to A, so that row of the product AB is equal to row of B, row of A, and row square of A is equal to A for row A and B in A. We note that if row is an involution, then for any element A in the center, row of A is also in the center of A. So we can define the following. Given an involution row on A, if row is the identity map on the center, then the involution row is called the involution of the first kind, and otherwise it's of the second kind. An example, the transpose map from the matrix algebra is an involution of this algebra. And since the transpose of A is equal to A for any diagonal matrix, in particular for any scalar matrices, this involution is of the first kind because this algebra is a central algebra, okay? And another example, the conjugation map on the set of the complex numbers is an involution on the C algebra C. And since bar of I is equal to minus I, then this involution is of the second kind because it don't fix the center, okay? And we denote by this the group of automorphisms of the ring A, and by this the group of automorphisms of the K algebra A, okay? And we denote by this the set of the involutions on A. And remember the definition of equivalent involutions. Two involutions row 1 and row 2 on a K algebra A are equivalent if there exists an automorphism phi of A, so that phi row 1 is equal to row 2 phi. Okay. And we note that if row 1 and row 2 are equivalent involutions, then they are of the same kind. So to classify the involutions, we consider involutions of the same kind. Okay. And now we consider any field K of characteristic different from 2 as a K algebra. And suppose there is an involution star on K of the second kind. Yeah, there is an automorphism of order 2 of K. Okay. And we denote star of A by A star, okay, for any element of K. And we denote by K0 the set of the elements A in K that is fixed by the involution star. This set is a subfield of K, a proper subfield, and the degree of K over K0 is equal to 2, and there is a of a finite incidence algebra. So let X a full set and K a field. The incidence space of X over K is the K space of functions f from x times x to K, so that f of xy is 0 if x is not less than or equal to y, with the usual sum of maps and the usual multiplication of a scalar by a function f. And we denote by this the subspace of the incidence space formed by the functions f that satisfy the following. For any elements x less than or equal to y in X, there's only a finite number of subintervals uv in the interval x, y, so that u is different from v and f of uv is non-zero. And this set is an associative unit of K-algebra with the product given by the convolution. Okay, Fg in the pair xy is the sum of the products f of xz, g of zy for any z between x and y. By this condition here, this sum is finite because there is only a finite number of elements z between x and y, so that f of xz is non-zero. And there is a finite number of elements z between x and y, so that g of zy is non-zero. So this sum is finite, okay? And then this algebra is called the finitary incidence algebra of x over k. The concept of finitary incidence algebra generalizes the concept of incidence algebra because when x is locally finite, this condition here is clearly satisfied. So the finitary incidence algebra and the incidence space are equal, and it is the incidence algebra of x over k. Okay? The incidence algebra was defined by Baklowski in 1970s, I think, and the finitary incidence algebra were defined by Nikola Krichenko and Novkov in 2009. Okay. An example, the upper triangular matrix algebra is an incidence algebra because if we consider this pole set with the usual partial order and the incidence algebra over x, this function that maps an element f in the incidence algebra to this upper triangular matrix is an isomorphism of the algebras. So the incidence algebra, this incidence algebra is the triangular matrix algebra is an incidence algebra. We denote by delta the unit of the finitary incidence algebra, which is given by delta of xy is 1 if x is equal to y, or 0 otherwise. And we can prove that the finitary incidence algebra is a central algebra if and only if x is connected. And in this case, the center is the set of the elements A delta with A and K. Okay. We denote for any element x in x, the element ex defined by ex of x is equal to 1, and ex of uv is 0 if the pair uv is different from the pair xx. Okay. And now, let's see when there exists an evolution of the second kind on a finitary incidence algebra. If star is an evolution on k and lambda is an evolution on x, then the map rho lambda star from the finitary incidence algebra to itself, given by rho lambda star of f in xy is the star of f of lambda y, lambda of x, is an evolution of the finitary incidence algebra. And moreover, if x is connected, the evolution rho lambda star is of the second kind, if and only if stars of the second kind. Okay? So we have the following theory. For any field K and a connected pole set X, the finitary incidence algebra has an evolution of the second kind, if and only if K has an evolution of the second kind and X has an evolution. Okay. I'll give an idea of the proof. If K has an evolution star of the second kind and X has an evolution lambda, then the evolution rho lambda star is of the second kind by the previous lambdas. Okay? And conversely, Suppose rho is an involution of the second kind, and for its element x in X, the element is Ex is a primitive idempotent, and therefore rho of Ex is also primitive idempotent. And then by lemma 1 from Kripchenko and Novkov, there is a unique element y in X, so that rho of Ex is conjugated to Ey. Therefore, rho induces a map lambda from X to X, so that given X in X, rho of Ex is conjugated to E lambda of X. And then we can prove that lambda is an involution. So, given an involution rho of the second kind, lambda is an involution of X, and if we consider the restriction of rho on K, this restriction is an evolution of K, which is of the second kind because rho is of the second kind. Okay, and remember that since X is connected, the finite incidence algebra is a central algebra. Okay, so this implies that the restriction of rho to K is an evolution of K. And now I will talk about the characterization of involutions on the finitary incidence algebras. To do this, remember that an element sigma on the incidence space, so that sigma of xy is non-zero for all x less than or equal to y, and sigma of xy, sigma of yz is equal to sigma of xz whenever x is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to z, determines an automorphism M sigma of the finitary incidence algebra by this. M sigma of f in xy is equal to sigma of xy, f of xy, for all f in the finite incidence algebra, and x and y in x. And such an automorphism M sigma is called a multiplicative automorphism. Okay? And then we can prove that given a field K and a connected pole set X, if rho is an involution of the second kind, then rho is a composition of a linear automorphism psi with a multiplicative automorphism M with an involution rho lambda star, when lambda is the involution on X induced by rho, and star is the restriction of rho to K. Okay? I will not present the proof of this theorem and the results about the classification of evolutions because it involves several technical lemmas, and then I will not present the proofs, okay? And now to present the classification of the evolutions, we remember that I will consider from now on a field K of characteristic different from 2, and next a connected pole set, okay? And a historical of the classification. In 2006, DiVincenzo, Koshlukov, and La Scala classified the involutions of the first kind on the upper triangular matrix algebra. Remember that this algebra is an incidence algebra, okay? And in 2011, Brusamarello, Santula, and me classified the involutions of the first kind on the incidence algebra for a finite pole set X with a non-comparable element. And then in 2012, Brusamarello, Santula, and me classified the involutions of the first kind on an incidence algebra for a locally finite pole set X with a non-comparable element. And finally, in 2014, we classified the involutions of the first kind on the finite incidence algebra for an arbitrary connected pole set X, so that every multiplicative automorphism is inner. This classification here generalized all the classifications above, okay? And recently, Kispiruri Silva classified the involutions of the second kind on the upper triangular matrix. okay? And in the last year, we classified the involutions of the second kind on the finite incidence algebra in the case when X is connected and every multiplicative automorphism is inner, and in case a field of characteristic different from 2, okay? We finished the classifications of the involutions on the finite incidence algebra under this hypothesis, okay? Remember that when the pole set X is connected, whenever multiplicative automorphism is inner, every involution of the finite incidence algebra has this form here, a composition of an inner automorphism psi with an involution rho lambda star, where lambda is the involution induced by rho on X, and star is the restriction of rho to K. Because remember, every involution has this form here. But if every multiplicative automorphism is inner, here we have a composition of inner automorphisms, okay? So, in the case under this hypothesis, every involution has this form here. To present the classification, I will present firstly the classification via inner automorphisms. A notation here we denote by psi A from the algebra A to itself, the inner automorphism given by the element A, okay? And this result gives a necessary condition for two involutions to be equivalent via inner automorphism. Let rho 1 and rho 2 involutions on the finite incidence algebra appear of the first or second kind if there is an invertible element U, so that the inner automorphism psi u rho 2 is equal to rho 1 psi u, then rho 1 and rho 2 induce the same evolution on X and the same evolution on K. Okay, so to classify the evolutions of via inner automorphism, we consider involutions that induce the same evolution on X and the same evolution on K. So we fix an involution lambda on X and an involution star of the second kind on K, and we are going to investigate when two involutions that induce lambda on X and star on K are equivalent via inner automorphisms. To do this, we use this result that says that for any pole set X with an involution lambda, there is a triple of disjoint subsets X1, X2, X3 of X, so that X is the union of these subsets, and X3 is the set of fixed points by lambda. If X is in X1, then lambda of X is in X2, and if X is in X2, then lambda of X is in X1. If X is in X1 and Y is less than or equal to Y, then Y is in X1. And if X is in X2 and X is less than or equal to Y, then Y is in X2. Okay, and we consider the case X3 is empty and X3 non-empty to classify the involutions via inner automorphisms. In the case when X3 is empty, let's store an involution of the second kind on K and lambda an involution on X, so that lambda of X is different from X, for all X in X. Then every involutions on the finite incidence algebra that induces lambda on X and the star on K is equivalent to rho lambda star via inner automorphisms. So in the case X3 is empty, this gives the classification of evolutions via inner automorphisms. And in the case when X3 is non-empty, we consider a map epsilon from x3 to k0 times. Remember that k0 is the set of fixed points by star. And we denote by u epsilon, the element of the finite incidence algebra defined by u epsilon of xy is 0 if x is different from y, 1 if x is equal to y is not in x3, and epsilon of x if x is equal to y is in x3. This element is invertible, and the composition of the inner automorphism given by u epsilon with rho lambda star, which is denoted by this, is an evolution of the second kind that induces lambda on x and star on k. And we can prove that if rho is an evolution that induces lambda on x and star on k, there exists a map epsilon from x3 to k0 times, so that rho is equivalent to rho epsilon lambda star via inner automorphism. So to classify the evolutions via inner automorphism, we must investigate when two evolutions of this form here are equivalent via inner automorphism. To do this, we denote by P the canonical homomorphism from K0 times to this quotient. Remember that K1 is the set of the elements of the form A star for a non-zero element A in K, okay, which is a subgroup of this group here. And for any map epsilon from x3 to k0 times, we denote by theta epsilon the composition of P with epsilon. And we define on the set of all maps from x3 to this quotient the following equivalence relation. The maps θ1 and θ2 are equivalent if there exists G in this quotient group, so that θ1 is the left multiplication by G composed with θ2. Okay. It's clear that for any map theta from x3 to this quotient, there is a map epsilon from x3 to k0 times, so that theta is equal to theta epsilon. Okay. And then, given two maps epsilon 1 and epsilon 2, the involutions rho epsilon lambda star and rho epsilon 2 lambda star are equivalent via inner automorphisms if and only if theta epsilon 1 and theta epsilon 2 are equivalent. Remember that theta epsilon is equal to P composed with epsilon, okay? And then we obtain the following. Let star an evolution of the second kind on K and lambda an evolution on X that has at least one fixed point. And let rho 1 and rho 2 involutions that induce lambda on X and star on K. Then rho 1 and rho 2 are equivalent via inner automorphisms if and only if they induce the same equivalence class on these sets here. Okay. And then, as a consequence, in the particular case when the evolution lambda has exactly one fixed point, every involution lambda that induces lambda on X, evolution that induces lambda on X and star on K are equivalent to rho lambda star via inner automorphisms. Okay. And then use the classification via inner automorphisms to obtain the classification, the general classification of involutions. We remember that two involutions, lambda and mu on X, are equivalent if there exists an automorphism alpha of X, so that alpha lambda is equal to mu alpha. Okay. And now, given evolutions lambda 1 and lambda 2 on X, we denote by x3 lambda I the set of elements X that are fixed by lambda I. Okay. And we note that if lambda 1 is equivalent to lambda 2, then the cardinality of the fixed points by lambda 1 is equal to the cardinality of the fixed points by lambda 1 is equal to the cardinality of fixed points by lambda 2. Okay. And then in the case the fixed points of lambda and lambda 1 is at most 1, rho 1 and rho 2 involutions of the second kind that induce lambda 1 and lambda 2 on X respectively. Rho 1 and rho 2 are equivalent if and only if lambda 1 and lambda 2 are equivalent, and the restriction of rho 1 to K and rho 2 to K are equivalent. Okay? And then which completes the classification in the case the evolutions lambda 1 and lambda 2 has at most one fixed point. And in the case lambda 1 and lambda 2 have more than one fixed point, if we have an evolution star I on the second kind on K, we denote by K0 I the set of elements of A fixed by the evolution star I. Okay. And then this theory completes the classification of involutions of the second kind. Remember, every involution that induces lambda on X and star on K is equivalent to an involution of the form rho epsilon lambda star. And now we verify when two involutions of this form are equivalent. So let lambda 1 and lambda 2 involutions on X with more than one fixed point. And let star I be an involution of the second kind of K, and epsilon y from X3 lambda y, lambda I to K0 I times a map. The involutions rho epsilon 1, lambda 1, star 1, and rho epsilon 2, lambda 2, star 2 are equivalent if and only if there exists an automorphism alpha of X and an automorphism phi of K, so that alpha lambda 2 is equal to lambda 1 alpha, there is lambda 1 and lambda 2 are equivalent, and phi star 2 is equal to star 1 phi, or there is star 1 and star 2 are equivalent, and rho epsilon 1 lambda 1 star 1 and rho phi epsilon 2 alpha minus 1 lambda 1 star 1 are equivalent via inner automorphisms. Okay, so the classification via inner automorphism gives the general classification of evolutions. These are the references I quoted. Here is the definition of a finite incidence algebra. Here is the classifications of evolutions on the upper triangular matrices. And these three given the classification of the evolutions on the finite incidence algebra in the cases X finite with an uncomparable element, locally finite with an uncomparable element, and here any connected set so that every multiplicative automorphism is inner. And here is the classifications of the evolutions of the second kind for upper triangular matrix algebras. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your talk. Yeah, let me see if there are questions. There's a question in the chat. What are applications?
I don't know, evolutions appear in several areas of the mathematics, but I don't study applications for a while.
More questions? I have a question. So you study incidence algebras and evolutions over a field, right?
Yeah.
So do your results extend to some classes of commutative rings?
I think maybe some extends, but I think not all. But I don't think about it.
So maybe you just, I don't know, replacing K cross by the group of units of the ring,
Yeah.
and then you have involutions, you have fixed points, you have that quotient groups as well. So everything makes sense, but I don't know, maybe the proofs become more complicated.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
More questions? Okay, thank you very much for your talk. So I guess there are no more questions for today. So let me also thank to all the participants, and I wish them a good week. So I think a lot of people are already enjoying their vacations, but still. Some people may work still. Okay, so thanks again, Erika, for accepting our invitation, and thanks again for your talk.
Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for all.
So see you next week.
See you. Bye-bye.